Hello everybody and welcome. This video is to introduce you to some basic ideas of research and to how to best use the resources in the PO library. Without further ado, let's talk a little bit more about when you need information. Where do you usually go? I really like to start this lesson off asking students that question. Most of my more honest students usually say that the first place they usually go is Google, right? When we need to know when that actress's birthday was, or when we need to know where the nearest Target is, Google is our go-to source in our everyday lives, usually. However, that's not always the best case whenever we are doing academic research, because while Google does have some academic sources on it, it also has a lot of not so academic sources, and sometimes it can be hard to shift through all of that information and determine which is good academic information and which isn't. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between open web searching and database searching. So open web searching is whenever you use something like Google or Bing. It is usually free, there's no price tag involved, but it is not curated, right? It can be anything and everything on there. It could be something written by someone's grandma, or it could be something written by someone with a PhD. So that's where you have to be very careful. Databases, such as JSTOR, EBSCO, Canopy, or ProQuest, are usually behind a paywall, but they are curated. That means the information has been vetted, that someone has looked at the information and said, yes, this fits within the scope of our database. And so that's definitely where you find more of that academic information and where it's easier to be sure the information is academic. So let's talk a little bit about what the open web is good for. The open web can have anything and everything on it. The open web can be very good for brainstorming and some background research. So when you're first getting into your topic, it can be a good way to kind of dip your toe into the water and see what information is out there and just to get sort of a grasp on the information. It can be good for navigating the web. So if you're looking for a specific website, it can be very helpful. I do like to mention the Google Scholar. So Google Scholar is sort of a search within Google that has more of that scholarly information on it. Usually it does have that peer-reviewed information. However, some of it could still be behind a paywall. So just because you can find it on Google Scholar doesn't necessarily mean that you will be able to access it. And then, of course, like we talked about a little before, we have to ask that question, is this information reliable? Google can have reliable information, but it can also have information that is not vetted by scholars or not written by scholars. And so you always want to be very, very wary and really evaluate any resources you find on Google. On the other hand, databases are going to be more narrow. We talked about how they are curated content. So they may be curated to a specific discipline. So this database has information on history, or this database has early childhood education resources. Oftentimes, databases include scholarly content, which means it is written by an expert. And very often that scholarly content is also peer-reviewed, which means it is written by one expert and then reviewed by a committee of other experts. Peer-reviewed is considered sort of the gold standard of academic information. Databases are useful when writing academic papers, again because that's where we find the bulk of academic information and scholarly writing. And luckily, databases are paid for by the library, which means that we give you access to over 200 databases that you can use for free while you are here at Pacific Oaks. Now that you know where you want to search, what is the best way to search? So in this section, we're going to talk more about sort of the about the different tactics and strategies that you can use whenever you're searching within those databases. So most of us are going to use keywords whenever we start searching. And what keywords are they are your main topic or your question boiled down to the most essential concepts. You want to avoid using overly common words such as why, how, impact, or benefit. Those words can appear in articles about early childhood education, and they can appear in articles about tree frogs in the rainforest. So you really want to use specific language to your topic. And keywords are a great place to start, but you want to find other strategies to really help support those keywords. And that's what we're going to talk about in just a little bit. If you find your keywords aren't working for you, there's a couple of different things that you can do. First, you can look at ways to broaden or narrow your terms by using synonyms. So let's talk about the word dog. You can use a synonym for dog such as canine and possibly get a completely different set of results because canine is more sort of scientific. Therefore, you may find more biology results by using the word canine. You can also narrow it down even more by saying something like golden retriever, a specific kind of dog. If using synonyms isn't working for you, something that's related is expanding your vocabulary. So sometimes the way we talk about something isn't always the way scholars talk about a certain topic. So by doing an open web search or reading over class material, you can gain an understanding of the topic's vocabulary and therefore better adjust and better create your keywords. Or you can always revisit your topic. Is there another angle which will help you find the information you are looking for? Now that we've talked a little bit about keywords, we're going to talk about the best way to use those keywords. And we're going to do that by talking about tools and commands for efficient searching. We're really going to talk about Boolean commands here and a little bit about advanced searching. And then we're going to do a quick example together. So, Boolean commands, some of you may have heard of them before and some of you may have not. Today we're going to make you all experts in Boolean commands. So these are the commands we're going to talk about today: and, or, not, quotation marks, and truncation. So and is the simplest and the one that you probably use all the time without even knowing it, because it is the default for most search interfaces. And what and does is basically means that for every keyword you have, you want that keyword to appear in the results. So here, you're not just looking for results that have learning and play, or play and child. You want results that have all three. So you're narrowing it down to this little blue triangle where all three results meet. Or, on the other hand, is a way to broaden your search, and it's best if it's used between words with similar meanings. So, for example, here we have games and play, or games or play, right? So what this means is this is going to show you results with the words games and play, or just play. This can also work really well for certain words that have very common acronyms. For example, maybe you're studying the autism spectrum disorder. So you would want to use autism, or autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. That way you don't lose a good source just because they refer to ASD in one way versus another. So next we're going to talk about not. And not is another way to narrow your search and is useful to eliminate certain terms. So let's say we are searching for children, very specifically, right? Maybe early education, early childhood. But we keep on noticing that in our results, we're seeing a lot of infants. But infants are too young for our scope. So we want to search for child, not infant. and this will eliminate any results that have the term infant in it. You do have to be a little bit careful because maybe a result with infant would be relevant to what you're looking for, or maybe part of that article would be relevant to what you're looking for. Sometimes, though, it can be very, very useful when you just have a lot of results that have that key term that you don't want. And last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about truncation. So what truncation is when you have a base word and you put this little asterisk, this little star after it, it's going to show you results that have that base word in it, but is a different form of the word. So for example, if you search for child star, it's going to give you results with child, results with children, results with childhood, and results with childbearing. Another good word that you could do this with is the word book. If you searched for book with the little asterisk, it will give you back results with the word book, with the word storybook, with the word handbook, and even the word Facebook. And what you can do with these commands is you can create longer phrases. That way your search is being very specific for what you're looking for. So here we have learn and child with the asterisks, and development and play or games, and early childhood, not infant. Now, the one trick we didn't talk about is those little quotation marks. So here you see we have early childhood in quotations, and that's so we can make sure that we find that phrase together. We want the words early and childhood together. We don't want early in one sentence and childhood in another sentence down the page. We want them right next to each other. So now let's talk a little bit about advanced searching with those subject terms and discipline limiters. So keywords are one-dimensional, but by adding subject terms or discipline, we give our words context. So what this means is, well, let me tell you a story about a student I was searching with a couple of weeks ago. She was researching women administrators in K-12 schools. And so she and I sat down and we came up with a couple of different keywords. I think we had like women and administration or leadership and K-12 or secondary or something along those lines. And we hit search and our results popped up. And we noticed we had a lot of results that were that were about medications or medical treatment. And we sat there and we scratched our heads a little bit because we weren't sure why. But after reading a couple of the abstracts, we realized that because you administer vaccinations or you administer treatments, that word was making us get these other results. So what we did was we limited to the discipline of education, which got rid of all of those medical results and only showed us the results that fell into the discipline of education. So these can be really powerful to give your keywords context so the database understands where you're coming from and what discipline you are hoping to study. So now that we've gone through all the rules and sort of all the tricks and tips, let's try it out. So as many of you probably know, this is the library homepage, and this right here in the center is our summon box. So what this summon box is it's basically a single search interface that is going to search almost all of our 200 databases. What it's not going to search is our streaming video databases, but it's going to search basically everything else. Now, you may be tempted to just click in this box and start typing in your keywords. However, we are moving beyond that now, so we're going to click beneath it where it says More Search Options, and we're going to click on that, and it is going to open up the advanced search page for Summon. And this is when we are going to use all of those skills that we were just using. So here we have individual boxes for our key terms. We can decide what field we want to search in. So let's say we are looking for a specific author. We can limit to the author field and just search for works by Vygotsky, for example. Now right now we're going to leave it to all fields, so we're just searching the whole document. You will also notice you have a drop-down box for that and or not. So the database is actually going to help you to put those phrases together. So let's use the same phrase that we were working on before. So we're going to start with learn and child, and after child we're going to put the little asterisks. Then we're going to come over here, hit this little plus to add another box. So we're going to do child and development. And play. Now here we're going to change, once we add our next box, we don't want an and, we want an or. So now we're looking for play or games plus, early childhood, and we use the little quotation marks because we want it to be a phrase. And something you might notice is since we hit the plus, it automatically added it as an or because that's what the box above it was. But since games and early childhood don't really mean the same thing or aren't the same concept, we want to change this to an and. And then add another box for our last keyword, which is infant. But remember, that's not within our scope. So we want to change this and to a not. And so that's the way within most of these databases you can put these phrases together. Now, you'll notice here there's a lot of other limiting that we can do, but we're going to take a look at that on the next results page. So now we're just going to hit search and see what comes up. Okay, so we have 131,000 results. Wow, that's a lot. And that's more than we're ever going to have time to look through. So let's use this bar over here on the left-hand side to limit it down to more specific things that we're looking for. One thing I recommend doing is limiting to full text online. That way you know the results you're getting are results that you have full access to right now. You'll notice just by choosing that, it took us down to 97,000 results. So that's a good start. Let's say we also want to make sure they're peer-reviewed. Then we can click on this peer-reviewed here, and that's going to take it down to 28,000 results, which is great. Now, here's where we can look at that discipline and those subject terms. So, by selecting the discipline of education, that's going to take it down to 16,000, getting rid of everything that doesn't fall into the education field. And we also see the subject terms right here. Now, subject terms are a little bit different than discipline. What subject terms are they are basically tags assigned to a resource by the database. So for example, let's say this article right here, Fostering a Head Start in Math, is an article that we really like. By hitting preview, it'll show us the different subject terms related to this article. So we have teachers, mathematics education, Head Start project, and early childhood education. So these are the ones that someone has gone through and read the article and said, this is what the article is really about. And so here you'll see we have 5,000 results within our current pool that have the keyword education, or 3,000 that have early childhood education. Let's say we also want to limit to early childhood education because that was also one of our keywords, right? So that takes us down to 3,000. So we've come down a lot from our original, I think it was 130,000. But 3,000 is still a lot of results to go through. So what we can do is we can also limit by date. So let's say we want something pretty recent, maybe even within the last 12 months. That takes us all the way down to 209 results. So you'll see by using these filters and this advanced searching, you can really make sure that you're finding the sources that are the best for you and really limiting down so you're not having to dig through so many sources. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Pacific Oaks Library. Our email and phone number are down at the bottom of the screen.